After 5.5 hours of live showtime on Sunday, we wanted more because it's Yabu Mania, man, so we have to get to it on this Monday, especially after the Sixers pick up their second win of the season and they no longer have the individual worst record in the NBA. Welcome to the
Take
PHLY.
a bow, Sixers.
That's right.
Take a bow.
Sixers Podcast here, along with Derek Bodner, Kyle Newbeck. I'm Devon Givens, Brianna here. All of you in the chat, it's Victory Monday. Not only did the Eagles win a big game, so did the 76ers because, man, did they need that one now at 2-7. But returning home, snapping the 5-game losing streak, and albeit the Charlotte Hornets, they just simply needed a win. And after blowing a 16-point lead in the fourth quarter, making it harder than it needed to be, they pulled away with the win. Jared McCain, we talked a lot about him on Sunday after the game. We'll get to him a little bit later. But Kyle, also, since you were in the building, and while we spoke to you briefly after the game, of course, for your post-game coverage, but in your written content at allphly.com, everybody go check it out. Yabusele was also fantastic. And part of the conversation also goes into, number one, everything that we discussed from the offseason, the uncertainty of it all. Where would he fit in? A starting role, potentially, for a lot of people, just simply asking. He's the only real true power forward on this roster, but he has been forced to play a lot of the five because of Joel Embiid's absence, Andre Drummond getting the start. But since we've gotten going and there are 9 games in, there's also this conversation now of, especially since Nick Nurse decided to start him in the second half and bring Andre Drummond off the bench, should his role be a little bit different now going forward?
Well, so one, yes, they need to expand his role, I think has become pretty clear. And that is for one reason and one reason only. It was the biggest question mark coming into the year. Can he and will he shoot? Well, so far, he is shooting 43% from three. Whether you believe that's sustainable or not, the fact that he's been able to, in 9 games, playing a pretty healthy amount of minutes, about 20, 21 minutes a night, and getting up 4 threes a game, which in that amount of time, that's good volume for an off-ball role player. He has shown the confidence and the proficiency that they've needed from him as a shooter. And so that opens the world up, not just for him, but the lineups he can be included in, the combinations you can put him in. Because the big concern is you're looking at him in the summer and saying, okay, Kelly Oubre, questionable shooter, streaky shooter. Caleb Martin, questionable, streaky shooter. And with those guys being guys that you're counting on, that you're saying these are integral pieces, there are only so many guys in one rotation who can get minutes and not shoot the ball and can play next to someone like Joel Embiid, who needs confident and efficient shooters around him. And we've brought up on the show early in the season, even as he was having some success, Yabusele was not exactly as quick on the release as they needed him to be. And there are still some moments where he's taken the one dribble with the space he's got and then rising into a three. But what I think we've seen in the last, let's call it week and a half or so, is there have been some quicker release moments. There was the one that really jumped out at me was against the Lakers last Friday. He let one go with Anthony Davis in his face, offering a real contest, and got it off quickly, got it off over a big, long, athletic defender, and made it. And just as importantly, just had the confidence to let that shot go. And when that happens, we can see all the other ancillary skills, right? As a center, great screener, has been a really proficient short roll player where they get him the ball around that elbow area and in, and he's making nice kickouts to the corner, some nice dump offs to guys hanging in the dunker spot. I think we've seen, the defensive intelligence shine through on the other end, even if he lacks as a, pure rim protector. But that shot opens up everything for him, because now you can look at it and say, okay, he can play next to Joel Embiid in the front court, and we can mix and match different combinations at the 1 through 3 spots, whether it's the starting lineup or the backup units, because maybe you don't have to over-index on shooting and say, God, we need to get like Kyle Lowry on the floor right now, or we need to play Eric Gordon. Yabusele helps with the shooting equation right now, in addition to everything else he does. And I just think that gives me so much more confidence that he can succeed in almost any lineup they can throw out there.
Well, and last night, one that he made in the game, as this game was close, outside of the 16-point advantage that the Sixers had in the fourth quarter, when things got closer, the one thing that I did, you point out the Lakers shot against Anthony Davis. There was also one that wasn't necessarily defended well, but it was more of what his teammates did, and the ball swung. They had a really good ball movement possession where the ball just snapped around to everybody that was open, having the defense and forcing them to rotate. And there was an open guy. I don't know if it was Oubre or Martin, but it was one of the two. But they decided to make that extra pass to him.
Mm-hmm.
And while he was on the wing, and then the closeout came, it was a rhythm three. He didn't hesitate. We talked about it last night in the moment, Derek, that he didn't hesitate at all. Kyle, he just rose up, saw the goal, lined it up, and just flat out let the ball go. He made it, and that is a big development, as we've talked about it so much of. He's not thinking about it. We pointed out the one where Caleb Martin was wide open in the corner in front of the Hornets bench. He lined it up as he should, but he took a long time. And when you're that open, sometimes you think long and wrong, right? And that's a big problem. And this one, Yabusele just caught it. He knew exactly what he wanted to do. He fired it up, lined it up, and let that one go. So, Derek, as we see that and we see this part of his game just continue to grow, only 9 games in, the shooting percentage will naturally go down. But it's just more about, again, as Kyle pointed out, how things have now changed with the mere fact of the shooting being there with it. And he's playing 2 positions, one position, and we also want to see him in another.
Yeah, and look, I think there's going to be conversations about should he start. In fact, I'm pretty sure we titled the headline of the show, Should He Start? I would probably slow down on that a little bit, in part because ideally, to me, you would have more, you want as much ball handling, as much shooting, not just stationary, but movement shooting. Enough people who can, force a rotation and make a decision. And Yabusele, for the most part, isn't that. That being said, it's a great outcome no matter what. Like, even if maybe his skill set isn't the ideal starting spot, and certainly he would help with the rebounding, certainly he would help with the toughness. Like, there's things that he would bring to that starting lineup. But given how limited some of the other shooters are, I really love for a high volume, high diversity shooter who has a little shot creation or at least ball handling skills to sort of round out that starting lineup. But that might not come until after the trade deadline, and so we can reevaluate then. But regardless of whether or not he's earned a starting spot or not, regardless of whether or not his skill set is the right fit, the key is he can sort of work at either position. And for a player who you came in with a 14th roster spot and so much uncertainty on whether or not he would work in the NBA, uncertainty on whether or not that shot would translate to the three-point line, the fact that we are even having this conversation is a great, great win. And quite frankly, with how many of the moves, and look, I don't want to label any move right now a failure. When you've played 0 minutes with Joel Embiid, you're not being evaluated on the test that you were signed for. But with how many have not necessarily have been disappointing up to this point, for him and McCain to pop the way that they have, and for Yabusele to be as consistent as he has been, he's made at least 2 threes in 5 of the last 6 games. He's making almost 2 per game on average. Nobody expected that kind of volume. And even if I might nitpick a little bit on maybe the slowness of the release or an occasional hesitation on getting the shot up, it is translating way better than we could have expected. I'm very happy that we're having this conversation. Like I said, my ideal partner would be somebody with a little bit more perimeter skills to put on that floor, but it is a very edge case outcome that, like I said, we're even sitting in these chairs right now having that conversation.
And to that point, Derek, part of the reason that this becomes a conversation is because the 2 non-Paul George wings, although we could throw Paul George in there with how poorly he started shooting the season, but Caleb and Kelly have been horrendous as shooters to open the year. Both of them well below their career averages. And as you're trying to game it out, right, we all know spacing matters for everyone, but we have seen the value around Joel Embiid specifically of just having high confidence, high efficiency shooters, right? And I'm not saying that you're certainly not putting Yabusele in the category with, the Currys and the Redicks and these other guys who have succeeded off of
That's
him.
next week's podcast.
That's it. Well, in a few weeks when Yabu becomes Ray Allen, apparently, then maybe we'll get there. But just having someone that we think is going to make shots right now is a marked difference from Caleb and Kelly. And I also think on the other side of it, as we're looking at some of these combinations that are coming into the game off of the bench, and they're playing very small for the most part, right? We're talking about at full health, it's going to be like Kyle Lowry, McCain, Eric Gordon. Like those guys are firmly either in the rotation or at least in the mix to play those backup minutes. If you play Yabu in the starting lineup with, let's say it's just for sake of argument, it's Maxey, it's Paul George, it's Oubre, it's Yabu and Embiid, then you have Caleb in a pure bench role, and he's adding a little bit of that, the toughness, the defensive versatility, and frankly, just a little bit of size to round out those backup lineups. Or if it's Kelly Oubre, same kind of deal, right? And you're balancing it in a little bit. You're getting a little bit of punch from a shot creation standpoint, some athleticism that they need. Now, you have to find the balance between both those lineups and the permutations of looks they're going to go through. But I think it's a good problem to have, as Derek is saying. The bottom line is, I think what we have seen in 9 games is that, yes, this guy is genuinely an NBA rotation player, that time he spent overseas served him well. He rounded out his skill set. And I think the thing that's also important is that some of these shots, some of them are pure standstill. I'm just, spacing and not moving during a possession. But a good amount of them are coming after a screen, roll, relocate, and just like some subtle movement around the perimeter. Mm-hmm. It's not movement shooting in the way that you're seeing from a Jared McCain, certainly. But it's not just been the PJ Tucker, I just stand in the corner and I can only make one type of shot. Mm-hmm. I think Derek rightfully pointed out at the beginning of the year, he doesn't have as much confidence or success so far in those trail spots. That's starting to catch up to the shorter corner three. And I think that's a pretty significant development for him.
One of the things that I was going to point out was the fact that early on, when we would talk about those shots, he would make one early and be like, oh, okay, cool. He made the shot. And then he would airball another. But then we would come right back and say, you know what he didn't do? He didn't let it affect the next shot, though. And what we're seeing now, again, talking about the rhythm shot earlier, maybe relocating to one, sliding and finding an open spot to make sure, similar to the point of last night when we brought up Kyle Lowry hitting Jared McCain for that relocated three in front of the Hornets bench. Yabusele is doing that. And Kyle, you also brought it, taking that extra dribble just to kind of find the seams on the basketball.
And he's far from the only guy who does that, right? A lot of guys are just more comfortable just put one down and then rise up.
Remember James Harden? One of the greatest three-point shooters in league history. And he could not catch a shoot three. He just wouldn't do it. His brain broke.
Yeah, so now you're asking this guy to do so with a three-point line that's further than what he's used to and trying to reacclimate himself into the NBA game. And he's done that very, very well to go along with everything that he has done that we will talk a lot more about with Yabusele. But he has been just a tremendous addition, especially when we look at, again, talking about everything early on of what his role could be, but also with them getting off to the now 2-7 start where they pick up this win, where there haven't been a lot of positives to discuss. And he was one of those things that we had the questions about.
We had so many shows where it's like, oh man, I'm sick of complaining about this team. I'm sick of it. You give me last night, I'm going to cling to any positive I can.
There's a lot of positives from him and for what he is doing, which is why it's Yabu Mania.
Yeah. No, I felt like we did the same show like 5 games in a row. So like if we're a little overly positive, deal with it, all right?
Nah, but it's a good sign when he's doing this without the full, complete roster. And once things finally do fall into place with the guys back, Kyle, you mentioned it already, fully healthy, and you can use players where you really want to use them and find out, especially with Nick Nurse not honestly getting off to a good start himself. Now, with Embiid coming back potentially tomorrow, Tyrese Maxey following at some point, and Paul George getting into whatever groove that he's going to get into as Paul George, to see everybody just line up into where they're supposed to be and how it's supposed to go, and then really truly evaluate how these players will look around the 3 stars, which is what they were signed and brought in here to do. We will get an opportunity to do so. So with that, we will come back and talk about a little bit more of Yabusele, what he has done and what it might mean for the current starting center for the Philadelphia 76ers and backup for Joel Embiid, and that is Andre Drummond. We'll do that when we get back right here on the PHLY Sixers Podcast.
And guys, I want to tell you about one of our wonderful new friends and partners. That's the good people at HelloFresh. Guys, the holiday season is just around the corner, and we are all looking for ways to spend and stress less. HelloFresh makes mealtime nearly hassle-free with delicious, home-delivered, chef-crafted recipes that come together quick and are less expensive than takeout. I went through the HelloFresh experience last week. I believe the fellas have their boxes as well. We all got sent we were talking about the different variety of food we got. The one night I had a nice sausage rigatoni with some pasta that was delicious. The next night, it was more of I believe it was a Mediterranean type meal. It was a pita with turkey bowls and rice and some nice turmeric rice. And it was it was really interesting and delicious. It was something that, quite frankly, I don't think I would think to make on my own. It's not a recipe that's like in my normal repertoire. And I think what I appreciate about HelloFresh is the simplification of the process while also saving you the money on getting takeout on an order like that, right? All the ingredients sent directly to you, the instructions sent to where even an idiot chef like myself can figure it out and prepare it and cook it all in a reasonable amount of time. It just takes the lift off of you when I know everyone's juggling, whether it's their job, their kids, their partner, their social life. We all have a lot going on. And HelloFresh simplifies the process and gives you delicious food in a package that shows up right at your door, labeled perfectly. It's so easy to do, and it's delicious on top of that. So I want you guys to get 10 free meals at HelloFresh.com/free Sixers, FREE Sixers, applied across 7 boxes for new subscribers only, varies by plan. That's 10 free HelloFresh meals just by going to HelloFresh.com/free Sixers. It is America's #1 meal kit for good reason.
And I want to tell you about a good reason to go out there and get yourself some really good underwear from our good friends, our partners here at Skims. Now, I have to tell you about mine in particular as we get these things sent to us and we have our own. I want to tell you about, you have your underwear. What are your issues with certain underwear, right? It's the comfort, it's the fit, it's the rising up the leg, maybe a little bit uncomfortable for you overall. Well, Skims, our partner here on the PHLY Sixers podcast, you don't have that problem with them. And I personally got the 5-inch, cotton 5-inch boxer brief inseam. Thank you, Derek Bodner, to make sure that I have, some good comfortability overall here with the underwear that I have. And folks, these are the most comfortable, the softest overall underwear that I've had in a very long time. So if you're looking for, not only for yourself, but for your loved one, maybe you want to go out there, ladies, and get your partner a pair of really comfortable underwear that both of you can like, you can go ahead and check out our good people from Skims. Shop Skims Men's at skims.com. It's very easy to navigate. Find the pair that you like. Again, the 5-inch inseam cotton boxer briefs. Let them know we sent you. And after you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. That way they'll know exactly where this came from. That came from the PHLY Sixers podcast. Once again, shop at mensskims.com to get your pair and be very, very comfortable, especially after wins.
PHLY has a very important question, Devon.
What's the question?
Is it wedgie proof?
It is wedgie proof. It is wedgie. I'm athletic. I feel like I'm still athletic. I get out there. You think so, huh? I think so. I had to run I had to run yesterday and get the power cord yesterday. Had the Skims on.
I don't know. By the time you got your power cord, it was like a 14-0 run. You could have been running that fast.
Well, I stopped and got some food because we did have food in here, so I got some food. But I had my Skims on. I was good to go. I told you, even though it's not after dark.
I got a pair of Skims on right now. That's TMI, obviously.
It's not too much because what I was about to say.
Devon promised to show and tell.
I said if they go on an 8-10 game win streak, I'll show the waistline where it says Skims, just so you know that I have Skims, and I'm not lying to you, folks. Make sure you go to Skims.com.
Nothing but personal endorsements on this show,
baby. There you go, Skims. Keep them. I'll leave it there. All right. Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers podcast here, presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whether the moment's never ordinary at Bet365. Derek, if Bet365 did have this on the site, I don't know that they have it. I'm not putting them on the spot in that way. I just don't know that they count starts. But if they did, would you look to Yabusele and see what the over-under starts at the center position when Joel Embiid is not in there because of how poorly Andre Drummond has played?
Yeah, it's a great question. We talked about this a little bit last night. I know we talked a little bit about it with Kyle. The numbers are staggering, like brutal.
Staggering, horrifying, whatever. There are a lot of words you could use.
A negative 19.9 net rating. So that's basically they're outscored by almost 20 points per 100 possessions with Andre Drummond on the floor. They're at a plus 0.7 with Yabusele on the floor without Drummond. Now, look, there's a lot of noise in those numbers. For example, like opponents are shooting 45% from three when Andre Drummond's there, only 28% when Yabusele's there. As much better of a defender as I think Yabusele is, especially on the perimeter, I don't think that's representative. Opponents are shooting 62% inside the three-point arc with Yabusele on the floor. That's not great compared to only 55% with Drummond. So if those three-point numbers equal out.
The 55% mark is not good either, to be clear. It's just that the Yabusele number is much worse.
Yeah. If that three-point shooting equals out a little bit, those numbers will come back together. But it's also, like, as much as I say don't live and die by the numbers, I don't think the numbers are wrong either. Yeah. I think it's pretty clear that Yabusele has been not just a little bit better, but significantly better, more consistent. I think he's been better, frankly, on both sides of the floor, which is freaking amazing considering one guy's a 6'8" guy who clearly can't protect the rim, and the other one is pretty much in the NBA for his defense and rebounding. Yabusele isn't, calling his own number the way Drummond does. And look, Drummond had some success last night because Charlotte's really small, especially with who they had available last night. But for the most part, we've seen way too much freewheeling. Yabusele moves the ball on the perimeter better. He spaces the floor better. There's just more continuity in the offense. And he hustles more. And watching Andre Drummond, who is legitimately only in the league because he's big and he can rebound, watching him just not move for defensive rebounds, not pull in contested defensive rebounds, not rebound outside of his area at all, it was infuriating. And is Yabusele flawed? Yes. He doesn't protect the rim at all. Like I said, with some of those opponent field goal or shooting numbers, a 62% 2-point, I do think is partly because of Yabu and the fact that he doesn't protect the rim. But he's just better positionally. His rotations are better. He looks like he's communicating better. It's hard to tell, but it just seems like they're more connected when he's on the floor. He's just doing way more of the little things, and he's giving way more consistent effort. And if I'm going to live and die by something, give me the guy who is shooting from the perimeter, who's willing to play a role on offense, and who is, making good decisions and hustling on defense. Even if he's 4 inches shorter and can't really protect the rim, I will die by that than die by what we're doing with Andre.
Yeah, and I think you can see that when they would situationally hedge and blitz against pick and rolls or LaMelo bringing the ball up and dribble handoffs and things last night. Yabusele could show him, hands up, arms up, and recover and still get back into position to make a different play. Where Andre is a very specifically limited player where if you can keep him around the rim, he has some value. Like, he's certainly big enough to contest and a good enough rebounder historically to end possessions. It's just that you can really only play that way. You can't ask him to do too much. Really, though, the bigger problem has been the other end of the floor, and that's where I'll give Andre a bit of grace. I think the numbers that are saying take Andre off and put Yabu on look ugly for him on offense, but I think he's being done a disservice by those same shooting issues that we're talking about for Caleb and Kelly, right? Like, Andre being a paint-bound center is a thing you can work around, but it's a thing that you can work around when you have other guys who can shoot and are making shots consistently on the floor. To have basically 3 guys who teams can ignore from the perimeter and say bomb away, and that's been the case for the Sixers in all these starting lineup groups that they've played so far, that's putting Andre in a no-win situation. And Yabu, just by virtue of being someone we'd call like more of a stretch big, like a pick and pop type player, that you can use him in that way, that gives him a massive advantage. And that's not Andre's fault that Caleb Martin and Kelly Oubre and some of these other guys are not hitting shots. So as the rotation changes and maybe Andre gets more opportunities with a Paul George, so it'd be more like Maxey, PG, Drummond, maybe you even play McCain and you play another wing and it's just like one non-shooting wing and Drummond. That changes what the lanes look like for the drivers. It changes, maybe Andre gets a few more easy buckets in the dunker spot or on post seals or whatever it might be. The other part, too, that's important to consider, they've played a lot of teams that are going to stretch you out with their bigs so far. They have not played a lot of matchups where it's like they need Drummond's size to deal with this team.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, there are not a lot of those teams left. There are not a lot of those bigs left. It is a league filled with 6'10" athletes who are spacing you out, stretching you out, and playing, even if they're rim runners, they are high flying, going up and getting lobs type of guys. And Drummond is not going up with those guys anymore. So I still do want to wait and see. I want to see what he looks like in that defined 15 to 18 minute role behind Joel Embiid. But on merit right now, Yabusele is far outplaying him. And I think we saw last night with Nick making that change in the second half. I think on the nights that Joel doesn't play, Yabu should be starting, and you work from there.
And you can, that's something that they've done in the past where they don't want to change
started
roles.
last year.
Yep.
Oh, God. Thanks for reminding me.
Oh,
I
listen,
just wiped that from the
nobody
memory
wanted to
banks.
bring that up less than I did.
We actually brought it up yesterday because we were talking about rebounding with two hands. So that's 2 appearances in a row of Mo Bamba.
Yeah.
So the thing for me, though, is the things that he can control, which is what he is known for, and that's the rebounding. There was no reason for, as young as the league has gotten around him in the front court and things stretching out to the perimeter as much as it has since he's gotten older in the league, last night in particular looked like he had cement feet. And we talked about him on the road trip where we discussed his role, but we all agreed that, while it is a little bit tough to watch him route, you keep him still. We want to see him at least in that 10 to 15, maybe 15 to 17 range as far as the minutes behind Joel Embiid. But last night, Diabate was just outworking him. Just simply
killing him.
Outworking him.
Felt like he had 20 rebounds in that game.
We looked up and we were like, wait a minute, how many offensive rebounds has he had? Kyle, he only had like 3 at the time.
Which is insane.
But it seemed like he had 7. And then we looked at the total rebounds and he had 11, which was like, all right, that makes sense. But it was just unbelievable how much it seemed like, I don't know if he's playing way too many minutes because of the workload that he has here, because Embiid hasn't been here for the 9 games, and it's just kind of caught up to him with everything, the movement, getting out to the perimeter, boxing out these young guys, the things that used to work, the intangibles, the tactics that he used to have there and employ against these other players that was somewhat like his size, that has changed. And last night really, really stood out of just again, I'm not going to go after his effort because he's the one that always, like I said, this is what he is known for. So he has always had the effort. He has always gone after that basketball and not allowed anybody else to get it. That kid was just, boom, tip this one. I got it. Andre, don't worry about it. You stay right there because I got an offensive rebound for me and my team here. And that was troubling last night to see it. So Embiid coming back here soon and we get a chance to see what it really looks like. I hope that we see way more out of Andre Drummond than we did over the last week, including last night, because that's not the guy that we thought, all right, cool. He looks good. He still looks in shape. He's saying all the right things about getting the phone call from Embiid and wanting to be here. He loves Philadelphia, wants an opportunity to play in this role. He knows what his role is. Last night, that was not your role. Your role was to clean up that glass. And when that guy showed you that quick bounce first, you're like, all right, can't let it happen again. You know who was doing that? Yabusele. Even if he didn't grab the rebound, he boxed out. He did not allow him to sneak around him to get that offensive rebound. He boxed out to allow his teammates to get that floorboard and make sure you secure that defensive rebound and you go the other way. So that was what my problem was last night. We always have seen the effort. That's what he does. It didn't seem like it was there last night.
Yeah, and look, the numbers show it, right? Across the board, he's getting fewer offensive rebounds, fewer defensive rebounds, fewer total rebounds than he's gotten. Doesn't matter what the minutes count has been. He gets a huge percentage of rebounds, and across the board, he's not getting to as many. And when he's been on the floor, the Sixers have only been a very slightly above average rebounding team. That has to be absolutely elite, right? He believes and at times has shown through the production and the numbers that he's one of the best rebounders that has played in the last, however many years. The time he's been in the league, certainly, and he hasn't been good enough there. What I would also say, I would raise an eyebrow at that just from the perspective of part of our thesis for the team as people were concerned about, they don't have power forwards, they need more rebounding, etc., is that while Joel Embiid will be able to rebound well because the perimeter defense will be good enough that he's not going to have to contest and rebound all at once. It'll be a lot more like they'll be shooting lower quality looks. Joel can rebound better. Well, I don't know that that's been the case so far. I think the part of their identity that is forcing turnovers, we've seen that start to show up, right? Now that Paul George is here and he's playing with Kelly and Caleb, I think the aggression that you want to get extra possessions and go the other way, that is there. I don't know that they're impacting shot quality to the degree that you probably want them to over time. And I want to see how they team rebound with Joel out there as well, because even though it's been a much bigger problem with Yabu on the floor for obvious reasons, it has not been good enough with Drummond out there. It's too early for me to say that's all on Andre, and it's not potentially a systemic problem that they have to fix through some personnel changes over time.
One of the things I asked Rich and Derek last night, because of the change at halftime and the struggles that we saw from Andre Drummond, see what you think. We just simply threw out, we didn't see KJ Martin, who had been playing decently enough. The front court was small for the Charlotte Hornets. I threw the question at, would you have been surprised, at least for just a few minutes, to steal some minutes for Yabusele if he was worried about going back to Andre Drummond, to go small ball 5 with KJ Martin, with his athleticism and his knack to getting that loose ball and grabbing those rebounds, just to steal some of those minutes for Yabusele.
Maybe, but I still, like, as bad as Andre has been individually and like what the lineup data says, I do think you have to let him play through at least some of it. If it becomes a month long, 2 month long, 3 month long even trend, that's when you start saying, go to the alternatives. It's way too early for me to just abandon some of these basic concepts or basic team building ideas that you had in the offseason, where you said Andre is an important part of this thing. And because his numbers are down in ways that just like don't match the player he's been. It's one thing for them to struggle offensively, and we can say, yeah, it makes sense when they have 2 non-shooters and Andre as a third, that the offense is going to struggle to score. It's a little more difficult to point the finger at him when it's like, well, they're just not rebounding very well. That's when you have to say, I want to take a step back. I want to let this play out a little bit. And frankly, you need to have Paul George out there more, right? Because some of these combinations that they're throwing out there are just like, when you have Lowry, McCain, and Gordon, or Lowry, Maxey, and Gordon, like Andre Drummond could put Dennis Rodman on his shoulders and they could be rebounding Voltron. You're still going to have issues when you have 2 6'1", 6'2" guys and Eric Gordon as your 1 through 3 on the floor. So I'm not ready to be like, yeah, play KJ Martin over him to spell Yabusele. I'm just keeping a close eye on how these minutes are going.
Appreciate the Voltron reference.
Listen.
That's good.
Well, I wonder how many in the chat are old enough to get that one, but I appreciate it.
That was a good one. Yeah, it's a really good one.
I was a big Voltron fan.
Throwback. So was I. So was I. All right, when we come back, you know who we're a fan of as of, hey, man, I mean, the guy was the star of the game last night. Jared McCain. We need to talk about Jared McCain mania as well, and we'll do that when we get back right here on this Monday. It's a Victory Monday, PHLY Sixers Podcast.
All right, big fella is back starting tomorrow. You're going to win tickets to get down there to the Wells Fargo Center, and Game Time is the place that you want to go. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Here are some of the other great features that make Game Time easy to use. They have all-in pricing, so when you toggle this feature, it shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Kyle Devon and I sat at a bar in Vegas making good use of that feature.
Oh, yeah.
You get a panoramic view of your seat before you buy, so there are no surprises when you get to the stadium. They have the lowest price guarantee. If you find tickets in the same section or row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And then they have the Game Time ticket coverage. With that, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it, Devon?
Game time.
That's what it is.
Cliff Livingston. Always got to shout out Cliff Livingston. That was a great one right there, Kyle. And I got to tell you about feeling good on this Monday. Feeling so good that I was thinking about, when we're done here, go home, change my clothes, go to the gym, and maybe get some shots up, play a little basketball tonight. Why? Because I feel pretty good. After Rothman Orthopedics, they have repaired both my ACL and my Achilles over the last 5 years. That means, Al, I'm getting back out there. So don't tell me don't do it. I'm doing it, man. Rothman, they take care of me. They take care of you. We all have specialties that we love, and we want to get back to the things that we do love, and we want to do so as healthy as possible. And Rothman Orthopedics, they make sure that they do that. And Rothman proudly serves dozens of communities across Pennsylvania and New Jersey, plus 30 convenient offices, urgent cares, and walk-in centers as well. Patients will find the full spectrum of orthopedic care at Rothman Orthopedics, from diagnosis to discharge. They provide their patients with every service and procedure necessary, such as x-rays, orthotics, bracing, MRIs, physical therapy, and more. I've done all of those because of my ACL and my Achilles. That's why I'm talking about Rothman and how great they are. And it's not just the volume overall of the 255,000 patients that they have, but it's also the new patients and consults that Rothman is most proud of. But instead, it's the commitment to improving each of those patients' lives through their service and care. So I can bounce back, get back out there on the court tonight if I choose to. Yes, Al, I'm doing it, and you should too if you're feeling up to it. Thanks to Rothman Orthopedics. They specialize in orthopedics and you. Visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more and make an appointment today.
Boy, someone is upset
Really
outside of our offices.
Actually,
honking their horn.
they just heard the reads and they got excited and they wanted to follow up on what we were just talking about. But we also want to welcome everybody back to the PHLY Sixers Podcast right here, presented by Bet365. Kyle, if you bet over 20 last night, you got it right for Jared McCain because he hit a new
Probably would have
career
made
high.
a lot of money on it.
Yes, you would have, especially as the leading scorer for
I don't
the
even know if that
Sixers.
would be on the board, frankly.
Yeah, for the leading scorer, I don't know. But for 27 last night, a career high, dropped a few threes in there as well. Different versions of threes, the catch and shoot, on the move as well, the pull up, walk right into the 3-pointers. But it was also the getting to the basket, the mid-range jumper, all on display last night, and a fantastic defensive play against LaMelo Ball down the late stretch there to force a shot clock violation. That guy has also earned himself some extra minutes.
Yes. So I will say, I want to be clear-eyed on the defensive stuff. By and large, he has not been good.
I pointed out the one play.
Yeah. I want to make sure we point that out, that the one play was awesome. It was great in the moment. By and large, he has not been good there. And that is not to rain on anybody's parade. Universally, almost universally, unless you're Victor Wembanyama, basically, rookies are terrible defenders. Just bad on so many different levels. The game's moving faster. You're playing bigger, more athletic people. There are more concepts you have to drill down on. You're also going, in most cases, from you're the star of the show to you're just one of the guys. Like Jared McCain has had to ride that roller coaster already, coming in off the bench and being thrown right into the thick of it rather than playing 35 minutes out of a 40-minute game. There are a lot of uphill battles you fight as a rookie defender. So he's been bad there, but that's no reason to, dispel any long-term things about him. Last night, the most important thing was the driving and the finishing at the basket, because his three-point numbers have not been good so far, but I think we all kind of assume he'll get there, right? Enough reps, enough quality looks, and he's going to get quality looks playing off of the likes of Maxey, PG, and Embiid. He will make a lot of threes. The bigger questions are, can he be successful as a driver, as a pull-up shooter from the mid-range, the in-between game? And while you played a Charlotte team that lacked big men and rim protection, I think you can see the makings of, like, this is how Jared McCain is going to beat perimeter defenses as a driver. I think he brought it up specifically post-game. He works a lot on those same foot, same hand layups, those touch shots where it's right foot and he's going up like that, and coming in from the left side with his right hand and catching people off guard. Footwork and timing is so important as a guard in general, but definitely as a smaller guard. And I think you're slowly seeing him figure out the process of beating NBA defenses with that type of stuff. And he has a really good understanding of his size and the limitations imposed on him and what he needs to do in order to counter that, right? Like using the threat of his shot to set everything else up. He brought that up directly last night, that he knows if he's going to have success inside the 3-point line, he always has to show the defense, I'm ready and willing to shoot, and get enough shots up that at any given time, he's facing a hard closeout that then he can use that to his advantage. So I loved what I saw from him in that last game. I think we're starting to see some progress for him in this, limited sample that we're dealing with. And I think as importantly as any of these things, and this runs through all of it, I just think that the IQ and the competitiveness are there. I think to be as unflappable as he was down the stretch of that game, that's really noteworthy for a 20-year-old rookie. The fact that the vets trusted him at the end of that game, saying, we're getting you the ball. Like they're actively going out of their way to say, get the ball to Jared type of deal. And he matches that, not just with the shot making, but the instincts on the one wing three that he hit where Lowry beats a closeout and is in the middle of the floor. He's sprinting to a spot to get there because he's already seeing a step ahead of the defense. If Kyle gets here, I need to be here in order to give him the best chance to make a pass. And that's stuff that can often take a long time for guys who are making the transition from feature player to role player. I think he already shows a great grasp of that type of stuff.
On that relocate, we talked about it last night where all three of us watched him in summer league practice doing exactly that with the coaching staff, of how much that showed up in the translation. All that hard work put in right there showed out in that play.
Yep. And Kyle brought it up, like his 3-point numbers aren't great yet, but they are trending up. He's shooting 40% on really good volume over his last 5 games. He's had 2 games in a row, 4 makes, 3 makes. So that's trending up. I have no doubt that the shot will eventually get there. I think for a rookie, he's transitioned relatively well to the longer 3-point line. What I need from him, I need him to become just a complete assassin mid-range shooter because teams are going to run him off the line. I need him to punish, because clearly I don't think he's going to finish ever all that great at the rim, especially over strong contests. But if teams are going to play in a drop, I need him to punish that. If teams are going to step up, I need him to be able to make those reads and kick it out. And I think he can do that. So now you just need him to force rotations. And the best way to do that is for them to be terrified of him pulling up off the dribble. That's not always going to be from deep. That's at times going to be from mid-range. I need him to have that counter in there. And I think he can get there. But I need him to not be a good mid-range shooter. I need him to be deadly.
And then that play just also develops into when you do that and you get to about that 17-foot area and they close out even in that intermediate spot, that's just a show and go, a little hesitation, and keep your dribble and get to the basket for maybe an easier layup or drop off to somebody else. That's just a simple counter right there off of that type of play. But the thing that I was impressed too, Kyle, as we talked about it in the moment, was his ability to, number one, we were looking at it, hey, attack Seth Curry every time he's on you. Yes. That's number one. LaMelo Ball's on you, attack him too. He's lazy on defense, even though he has that length at 6'7", and that was a terrible call by the officials on that one play with 16 seconds to go. And then also, you got Grant Williams on you, who's a decent defender in this league for many years now, but he wasn't afraid of it. He just did it. He just went right at him, sized him up, 1 dribble, 2 dribble, bang, I'm going right. I'm blowing right by this guy, and I'm getting to the rim, and he laid him up a couple of times. And that's what was also just impressive, because we've talked about the lack of ball handling on this basketball team. It's only Tyrese Maxey, Kyle Lowry, and then what else? Because Paul George wasn't there. Well, now you have Jared McCain, who is showing a little bit more of that off the bounce kind of dribble, that he can get the spots, get his shot. Now the other stuff now has to play out, because you're on the whiteboard now. Tyrese Maxey talks about the whiteboard. You're on that scouting report, and on that scouting report, they know exactly what this. So what are your counters now as you continue to move forward? Because those minutes are going to be there. You're going to play with some different players, but you are no longer a secret.
And I think one of the things that's encouraging too, you saw on the college tape that his strength was an asset, right? But you always have to wonder if your strength as a small guard is an asset at the college level. Once the athleticism gets higher game to game, once the guys are bigger than you, can you still leverage that? And I think increasingly we're seeing, yes, he still is able to do that. That when he has a Seth Curry, when he has these guys who are targets on that end, he's able to leverage that. Now, does that mean he's going to be able to do it against higher level competition and the type of guys you're going to see in the playoffs? I don't know that yet, but I think the fact that he's been able to do it, at least situationally, is a good sign. I think also we've seen the rebounding stuff that we saw, like he's mixed it up really well so far. Doesn't mean that the numbers are necessarily overwhelming in terms of the per game or the rate stuff, but that play that I'm sure you guys loved last night where he dives into, you know, a group of like 3 or 4 people, comes up with a loose ball and sends them the other way. Those are meaningful plays. Like it's instinct, it's competitiveness, it's a bunch of different things. And so I think while he does have physical limitations, I think already at 20, he has figured out ways to still impact the game in spite of those. And I think you can see that the work he puts in is purposeful and has those issues in mind. Because we talked about this a lot in the summer. There's a big difference between being a hard worker just in general and a hard worker who knows what is going to have the biggest impact on their game. And I think he is a guy who not only works hard, but has a strong sense of who he is and what he needs to do to round out his game specifically. That's going to serve him well as he goes through the ups and downs. There will be challenges for him, not just this year, but long term. I feel good about his ability to respond to how defenses change to him. And as you point out, Devon, to develop counters over time that'll help him adjust as defenses adjust to him.
There's no question he's going to do that with how hard he does work, how hard the scouting report was on him pre-draft, and what we saw ourselves and now seeing 9 games in.
Yeah, look, am I going to sit here and tell you there are no question marks with Jared? No, of course not. That would be completely absurd of me to do that. But it's just nice to have bought into another young player who you trust their work ethic, you trust their toughness, you trust their effort, you trust their decision-making, even if he's going to have physical limitations. And I'm currently arguing with some people in chat about some of those. Certainly some of those popped up on draft night when we were concerned whether or not he would fit next to Maxey, not against anything that was really within his control, but just the fact that he is short with limited athleticism. All of those are true, and we're not going to ignore that. It is our job to say both the positive and the negative and what we believe and what we're concerned about. But it is just a breath of fresh air to be like, I trust that this kid is going to make the most out of whatever physical tools he has.
100%.
And I don't know exactly what that means ceiling wise. I don't know if that means he can start next to Maxey. We have to let and see whether, let some of that play out. But it is just it's a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, it is. What do you look at his role? As we talked about Yabusele's role when players start to trickle back in the rotation, what do you see his role as?
So I said it in my recap last night of the game. I think any minute that you were like Eric Gordon would get, I would just give to Jared McCain straight up.
Yep.
Like I think
I agree.
His early form and sort of what we've seen from Eric Gordon says to me, if those two are even close, right? What is the case for playing either one? The case for playing Gordon is that you would think he's a veteran, he's been around, he'll bring a level of stability that you're not going to get from a rookie. But he hasn't, right? Like his shooting's been up and down as you would expect from a role player. Defensively, he has looked off the pace, and that's not surprising for a 36-year-old guard who doesn't have the greatest size in the world. In that case, you say Jared McCain moves a lot better. So the movement shooting that we're talking about, maybe that's not happening at the same level as like JJ Redick. It's not that frenetic sprint around the floor type of movement. But if he can give you that dynamic and the relocation ability and all that, and you're talking about we can get reps for this kid right now to build him up for, even if it's just for trade purposes, but what I would say is more for get this kid ready to play real minutes against real teams, potentially in a playoff setting. that is infinitely more valuable to this team on several fronts than just running out Eric Gordon and hoping that he hits like career averages from three. The developmental time that you can spend now while also getting production from him right now, because it's one thing if Jared had come out and shot like crap and you're dealing with the defensive issues of a rookie, then it's easier for Nick Nurse to look down the bench and say, well, I'll just go with Eric Gordon. If you're even or close to even as the young guy with theoretically way more upside, with, athleticism that you can leverage in certain circumstances, I would 100% go with the younger guy and play him. So I don't know how many minutes that is. Maybe that's 15 minutes. Maybe that's 20 minutes. He plays 30 plus last night, I believe, in a pretty unique circumstance. But I think at minimum, you can find 15 minutes a night for this kid. And then from there, it's where a lot of guys are at. How are you playing? What lineups are working? And you work situationally. And that should be the good problem this team has, right? Is that you want to get guys a certain amount of minutes as a base level. And then you just feel the game. You say, Yabusele has 6 threes tonight. We're going to play him till the wheels fall off. Jared McCain is cooking people. We're going to play Jared McCain, and we can play a little smaller and do things like that. That should be the beauty of this team and this roster. But I think bare minimum, he should have a guaranteed nightly role for, let's call it at least like a few weeks or so. You see what you got. And if he tails off, if he's struggling, you can always pull him back and say, you need to watch from the side a little bit, and we'll give other guys a shot.
No, it's a fair point, because we brought this up with Yabu before the season. I don't like reading too much into early season shooting trends. I think we can get anchored to sort of early season results and get frustrated by them when it's really just a small snapshot of a season. If somebody struggles in January, you don't really care. But if they struggle out of the gate in October, you freak out and you panic. There were 2 players I sort of made an exception to. That was Yabu, because we hadn't seen him in the NBA three-point line in quite a while. And that was McCain, because to your point, if Eric Gordon comes out and he struggles from the perimeter, you go, well, Eric Gordon has a track record of making threes at an NBA level. Now, the track record of driving or creating off the dribble at this point, looking a little slow. Get to that later. But McCain doesn't. So him coming out and making those shots early, it's a lot easier for Nick Nurse to be like, oh, okay, this is interesting. Mm-hmm. Even if maybe what he's doing outside of there, with some of his drive and kick stuff, with some of his competitiveness, even if he does have limitations offensively, that goes, oh, I can believe in this kid a little bit. And even though, he's going to make a rookie mistake on defense here or there, the compete level being there, I think helps Nurse maybe overcome some of his, struggles to play young players. But I think making shots is definitely key.
And so Nurse was talking about Jeff Doughton last night, but I think this generally applies to his philosophy on how they started the year. He said, we gave Reggie Jackson first crack because he has a much longer track record. If you're saying we're getting to our third, fourth guard on the bench who's going to run backup minutes, Reggie will try first. And then Reggie did not work out last week. It was terrible in the limited minutes on that road trip. And so Nurse said, now it's time to see the young guy. Now it's time for Jeff Doughton to get an opportunity. I thought Jeff Doughton did a decent job with his minutes last night. He's part of the reason they were able to win that game, because he could buy them, 10, 15 effective-ish minutes off the bench. So you look at McCain and Gordon in the same light, right? It's completely justifiable, especially when you go back to Summer League, and McCain had a ton of struggles there, although he had some flashes there, to say Eric Gordon, despite his limitations, is going to get first crack at those type of minutes in that off-guard role where you'll mostly be a bench guy, maybe like an occasional spot starter. You're going to get to try first. Well, you look at Eric Gordon. He has the one good game against Indiana, but largely has been ineffective otherwise. And Nick Nurse says, okay, let's go to Jared. Jared had a nice game the one night. Give him the minutes last night. Has an excellent game. And you ride him and ride him. I think the usage of McCain so far has been perfectly reasonable, right? Nurse is not burying him on the bench. And when he's had good games, he said, not only are you playing, I will allow you to close. I'll allow you to play big minutes. As a rookie, I think that's all you can really ask for, right? Is you have an opportunity. What are you going to do with it? And, all credit to Jared for he's had either a DMP or close to DMP and still being able to come in on a night like last night and have an unbelievable game.
Yeah, he played 3 minutes against Phoenix.
Yeah, I mean, like, so that's really tough. Just the mental side of it, right? Forget about being in shooting rhythm and all that. It's you go from being the man on every team you've ever played for to I'm not playing a single real minute in a game, and then I'm being asked less than a week later to close the game out and get the second win of the season. It's a real credit to him that he was able to stay prepared for that moment.
And I just the last thing I want to say on Jared, I understand the rotation is going to shrink when Embiid and Maxey come back. I understand they're probably going to want to see some of these veterans have a chance to play the role that they signed them to play, including Eric Gordon, who is probably the most direct competitor to McCain. But I want to make sure that they play McCain next to Embiid too, because I really think he has the kind of skill set where he could flourish off of him and play off of him, and they can really just he can create space for Joel. Joel can create space for him. I just don't bury him completely. I really hope that's the case.
All right, some positives from Yabusele and McCain. Let's see if that trend continues once the big fella, Tyrese Maxey, return to the lineup. We'll see where they fit in. Let's get to the Super Chats here on this Monday, starting with Semi B. Is that Semi B? Yabu is one of the more complete players on the roster. He deserves a chance to start. Develop McCain as the sixth man and trust what we have seen so far.
So that we can build a little off that with what Derek's saying. I do think I've been on this corner for a while. We'll see if it works in practice. McCain next to Embiid, I think, can in theory play point guard, quote unquote, because the point guard in a Joel Embiid led offense just simply does not have to do what a point guard has to do playing with, Andre Drummond or Yabu or whoever it is. McCain's role in a Joel Embiid world would be you get that ball to Joel and then your instincts take over, right? That's where you're relocating, you're running the dribble handoffs, you're using that off-ball IQ that we're talking about here. So I would really like to see, it doesn't have to be right away. I really want to see it at some point because I think those two are a natural fit in the same way that it was a natural fit with somebody like a Seth Curry who on his own is not a dynamic pick and roll or dribble handoff guy. But when you can put him in an action with Joel Embiid and so much attention is on him, any limitation that he has as a handler or with the burst or whatever it might be, that fades a little bit. And that gives him a much better opportunity to succeed as a lead guard. And then the rest of the lineup, you can put athletes and real wings on the floor and really change the composition of what it looks like.
With no Tyrese Maxey, maybe we'll get a chance to see that sooner rather than later.
And circling back to McCain, I do want to see Maxey next to McCain too, even if I have serious questions about them defensively.
Yeah, you got to see it.
I think McCain's a really good pairing next to Maxey offensively. So try it out. Just see whether or not their strengths help overcome their weaknesses.
All right, let's hit to the very next one here, and that is the 2-minute warning. What up, Al? If Ricky can't get time when Maxey is out, when will he get time?
It's a great question.
We don't know.
Garbage time?
We don't know. Yeah.
I think Nurse has sent a clear signal for the second straight year. He prefers KJ in that kind of the swing wing role,
and
right?
KJ didn't even get any time last night.
Yeah, KJ didn't play last night. And frankly, I think despite my concerns with KJ, he's defended well enough that he's kind of earned the trust to play that, 10 minutes or whatever it is.
And, this is also part of the side effect. If McCain and Yabusele pop, well, it's going to be tougher for Ricky to get in the rotation. And it's not like I think Nick's trust and belief in him to make the right decisions has increased. So if two players are popping, then something's got to give.
Final super chat from Real Time. The best part of the game last night was Kyle's smile.
I don't know if you guys saw this picture of me.
I saw it.
Well, then he dropped a super chat and commented on your RBF.
Well, listen, it was definitely a case of RBF.
Did you get a chance to see
But
it?
I did go and say hello to Real Time, who was in town.
I will say, I think if next time you're there, Real Time, stop by. I'd like to.
Well, he's an out-of-towner.
No, I know. It's Charlotte. Yeah.
Charlotte, yeah. So I'm not going to go into all the why he said he was here and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But we got to have a nice little chat before the game, chop it up. So I sort of saw someone wave in my direction figured out it was him. But I was like, I don't know that guy. Why is he waving at me? And then I see the tweet with my awful looking face on it. And I was like,
it was real
you
time.
SOB. And so then I went over and we had a nice little get together.
We appreciate everybody hanging with us here. If you're watching on TV, head over to allphly.com for more of the show right here as we continue on this Monday as Kyle tells us a story about meeting real time last night.
I will say, though, if you ranked everyone on press row with the biggest RBFs, I think we might be the top 2.
Oh, I'm definitely up there. I mean, the evidence suggests I'm number 1 with a bullet after last night, but I was also a little tired from celebrating my birthday the night before. So,
just like we pointed out last night, we were like, we were backing
Did you
up
forget
on
your
that.
Z-Biotics?
It was not a Z-Biotics problem.
Okay.
It was a pure fatigue problem.
Yeah.
I think it was the
late
West
nights.
Coast trip where I said it to Vince out in the office. It's not just that we're doing shows until 2 a.m. It's that once we're done the show, I'm not just like walking in my bedroom, head on the pillow and falling asleep. I was talking to you guys for an hour straight. I got to like wind down a little bit. So it was lack of sleep catching up. I will say though, that with real time bringing up that we met, this is an open invitation to anybody. You guys ever see me, certainly Derek and Devon,
Don't
at
let
these
our
games,
RBF scare you away. We're actually
please
nice people
come.
and we'd like to talk to you.
please come say hello. I don't know how you want to facilitate that, whether it's posting my RBF on Twitter so that I
direct
see
messages.
it, or waving, or just come right up to me and say hello. We had a PHLY guy who I know is in the chat came up to me at a recent game at halftime, just wanted to say thank you for the work we're doing. I always loved seeing everybody. And by the way, we do have an event later this week at Tirnanog on Friday night for Sixers Magic, a little
Look at him,
watch party
getting
and
that
live
name
show.
like a pro.
Keeping it rolling.
Did not work last
I'm not
night.
saying anything. Keep it rolling.
Look, I'm not trying to be like cliche machine over here, but like the community matters to us. So whether it's certainly we want you to come out to the event and hopefully get to watch Joel Embiid and a more healthy team with us. But also when you're just down at games and you're there a little early to see guys warm up or whatever, you have every right to come up to me and we can chop it up because we appreciate your support a great deal. And I always want to be there as a resource for you guys. I know these guys feel the same way.
Yes, absolutely do. And I'll be at my first game tomorrow. So if you guys are there and want to chat it up, let's chat it up. I'll be there tomorrow with Kyle and Derek.
Who are you rooting for tomorrow, Devon?
Well, I always root for one
Rooting
person.
for a 50-point McHale game and a big Knicks loss.
One person I always root for, so I'll be there tomorrow for that. And so we'll see everybody there. So yeah, that'll be fun. And Rich and Roy will have everything covered here for pregame and postgame right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. So you're in good hands. Bree is here, of course. She's got everything under control. The guys will be great. And you never know. Maybe I'll pop in on the postgame real quick. Walk in, bring a guest with me, depending on where the postgame is. You never know. Never know. M has a super chat. Just wanted to say what's up. Thank you, M.
Shout out to
appreciate it.
M. Isn't M is that the lady in James Bond who's like the
Yes, in charge, right?
right?
She's in charge.
Who plays her in? God,
Yes,
I'm
I don't
blanking
know
on
her
it
name.
right now.
Yeah.
She's a really famous British actor.
Fachi said she's going to be at the game. Come
Judy
looking for
Dench.
us.
That's
Yes,
who
Judi
played her
Dench.
in the.
Yes.
I was like, I could see her face, and I couldn't remember who it was.
Yes.
Shout out to Judy Dench and shout out to M.
Shout out to M.
I'm going to pretend in my head that that's Judy Dench in our.
What up, Judy?
Shout out to Judy, but shout out to M regardless.
Dave Dewar says, will I do a skims check if I see, who, McHale?
No, it's got to be the winning streak. We've already laid out the groundwork for a skims check. We're not adding a second condition.
And the NBA guys get their own skims. He doesn't need my help on that. It's all good. So,
Also, I think he can afford it, quite frankly.
yeah, he can afford it. But the NBA partners with skims, so. Kim, Chloe, Courtney, what up? All right, let's get to our world famous. Got the roll call, baby.
Yeah,
Let's get
buddy.
to it.
Thank you, as always, to everyone who's popping in, saying hello, hanging out, and helping us make this
People
show.
in the chat are saying Halle Berry was M in James Bond. When
I
she
don't
was
think
in
that
there.
was her character, frankly. I think her character was something else. I will look that up at another time. She was Jinx. What are you guys talking
is that
about?
what you guys are saying? I don't know.
Put some respect on the GOAT M's name and put some respect on Halle Berry's name for that matter.
The number one of all time.
Very different character.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes. Roll
That's
call.
neither here nor there. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Hello and goodbye to my girl Winona.
Hey, Nona.
To Chetva. To Real
What up,
Time with
Chetva?
Prince Blue.
It's pronounced Hedva.
Is it?
Yes.
Well,
all right.
Sorry, Hedva.
What up, Head?
There you go. Today I learned. Thank you, Derek. To Phi Chi. To
Phi Chi, what
Bootzilla.
up? Boots.
To Brian Knight.
What up, B
To
Knight?
Wawa Marvel.
Got the BKs.
Eugene Ross.
What up, Gene?
Darkness.
Turn the lights down in here, boy. It's bright. It was bright
Our guy
last night.
Al, the
5
2-minute
and a half
warning.
hours. What up, Al?
Money Marr. Ed Wright. We got Art. FI7.
What up,
FI7 is almost like MI6. So real James Bond
We
theme
got a theme going on
happening
here.
in here today. Dave Dewar hanging out. Colby Colbs.
What up, Cope? Great show, Cope.
I think this is a deal. So it's D1EHL. I'm going to say that. That's deal
Sound
with
about
a
right.
1.
Yep.
Shout out to Deal. Hello to Mary Overfield.
Hey, Mary.
A begrudging hello to
Hey, Mary.
Austin Krell, getting some free promo
What up,
in
Austin?
here
No free
today.
promo.
I'll say master. I won't say the first half of it's a name that it will not be repeated on the show. Music Lover 31
What up, 31?
hanging out with us today. Bree, who were our super chatters? We had Simi B, Al, Real Time, and M.
Yeah, Bill.
Thank you.
When I see Semi,
You
I think of
fine
Arsenio
people.
Hall from Coming to America when he was Semi.
Thank you also to
Right,
Jeffrey
Bree?
Stewart,
First
to
one.
Lee Nguyen. Who else? I think I'm reaching the top of my scroll, ladies and germs. Thank you to Val,
Val.
who checked in late today but still made it here. Val, it's okay to be late. You made it.
We saw Jess.
You participated.
Jess?
You checked that box. Thank you to Jess, as always, for coming through. Thank you to each and every one of you for hanging out with us. If you have not, I can't believe you haven't by now, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit the bell icon so you get notifications every time that we go live. And hit that thumbs up button because it does help us in the algorithm, but also to say thank you to super producer Bree, keeping us all together and moving along each and every day. We will be back for pregame and postgame tomorrow. That'll be Rich and Roy handling things here.
We got it back-to-back, folks.
While we're at the arena for the Mikal Bridges, Joel Embiid Jamboree at the Wells Fargo Center.
It's the NBA Cup.
NBA Cup, crazy courts, crazy jerseys. Tuesday's loaded, baby. We'll see you then.
We get to see the fresh jersey tomorrow. The first time. Yeah.
White
Beautiful.
Spectrum jerseys,
White Spectrum
baby.
jersey. It's in the house. See you guys tomorrow.
Goodbye.
We all silly like the mayor.